Hello, I hope you're doing great. Today we are going to talk about how you can have Blazor inside your Windows Forms applications. So, if you have been following the technology name Blazor, this excellent framework, you will know that it has amazing capabilities and that it's quickly becoming one of the most wanted or most useful frameworks that you will find around there because it is evolving up to a point where it can easily be used pretty much everywhere, as we are going to see today, even on Windows Forms. Now, before we continue, please remember to visit fairplaytube.bticostarica.com. Use the Buy Me a Coffee icon, select a donation of your preference, and this will allow us to keep the videos and products free for you. Okay, so let's start. So, Windows Forms was basically a technology, one of the first technologies that was introduced in Visual Studio to create Windows applications. Years after that, WPF was developed to facilitate a little bit the development or create more modern day applications. However, there are still a lot of customers or companies that use Windows Forms and that they do not want to rewrite their whole systems, right? So one of the things that Microsoft has been doing lately is kind of giving interesting tools or frameworks to allow developers or customers to modernize their applications in certain ways without requiring them to fully start from scratch. Uh, so you remember that Windows Forms was basically only on .NET Framework, and when .NET Core was initially developed, there was no support for Windows Forms inside .NET Core. Now in .NET 5, they started, yeah, I believe it was in .NET 5 that they started giving more official support to Windows Forms and .NET Core. And in .NET 6, you by default have the templates for .NET Core, and people can pretty much just convert their .NET Framework applications into .NET Core applications, at least in Windows Forms, without having to change their code a lot. And by just doing that, they will gain a lot of um, additional performance because of the way Windows .NET Core, .NET 5, and .NET 6 are basically implemented. However, give me a second, please. Sorry. So, however, even if they update their framework to a new version of .NET, the applications pretty much look exactly the same. And Windows Forms was a really, really basic UI, right? So that's one of the reasons a lot of people use XAML-based applications, for example, WPF, and now what's called WinUI. Um, they give you better look and feel. However, if you're going to move to that, you pretty much have to rewrite your application or do some interesting things. But if you are a Windows Forms developer or you have your applications in Windows Forms, now you can actually have some hybrid mechanism using Blazor inside your Windows Forms. So if you are, for example, a web developer and you had already created Blazor applications and you had all Windows forms that you want to modernize a little bit or use your components, you were not able to do that before, but now you can actually reuse your Blazor components. And now this is a key point. Um, so if you have been working with Blazor, one of the things that you should have figured out by now is that it is designed to be used everywhere because it is component based. So if you have designed your components being totally independent from the platform and application where you develop them initially for, you will be able to use this in pretty much every single project that you create. And as we saw in one of the previous videos, there are some sample codes and some experimental support for even supporting your Blazor components as part of Angular and React or JavaScript applications. So that's a key point. That's vital that you know that because that means that you can create Blazor components and use them everywhere, not only on .NET. So this is something really, really good. Okay, so let's start creating a Windows Forms application using Blazor. So here, if you see my screen, here I have a Windows Forms application that at the moment basically does nothing. It's just a default application. Now, what do we need to do first? First thing that you need to do is install a package named Microsoft.ASP.NET Core Components WebView Windows Forms. So basically we go at dependencies, manage NuGet package, and you can go browse, look for it. And now at the time of recording, this package is in preview, so you need to mark the include pre-release. You install the package, and once you install the package, you will gain access to some WebView components or WebView items. Now let's go back to the toolbox. And actually I closed the toolbox, so I always forget which the access. Okay, so basically it gives you these items. So we have this Blazor WebView Windows, and let's see. Now, currently this is an issue that it's happening on Visual Studio, but that has a workaround. Basically, you just create the component manually in your code, right? So what do you need to do? Basically, you need to go to your form constructor, and you will need to add a couple of lines of code. Okay, so you create a new instance of services or service collection, and you add the using, right? Then to that services, you add the Blazor view service. You create a Blazor view variable of a Blazor web view variable of Blazor web view. You indicated, well, you actually set it how you want it to dock in your Windows form. In this case, it's going to be the whole screen. Now you have to indicate which is going to be your host page. Basically, which is the HTML page that it's going to be loaded as soon as this web view is loaded. And remember that the index.html or the HTML that you use basically has to have a div with this name in there. Now we need to create a Blazor app. Now um, in the default examples, they just create a at least in the one I saw, they just create a page and they omit the router because yeah, but it was just an example. And if you are in Windows Forms, the router may or may not make sense because you can just create a Windows Forms menu and then just um, open another another Windows form that it's hosting another page. However, for each of those forms, you will pretty much have to do something like this with a different page. But in this case, we are going to organize it. Apps, okay. I am going to create a new item, which is going to be a Razor component, and I'm going to name it Razor app. So let's see what it is. Okay, it's not in here. And there is something that I forgot to do. Now you need to go to the project, edit it, edit project file, and sdk.razor was it? I always forget if it's razor.sdk or sdk.razor. So this one is okay. And now I see the Razor component. I'm going to name it Blazor app. And the Blazor app, it's basically going to have my router. Actually, the other thing I need to do is I am going to create another component, which is going to be the underscore imports dot razor. So we don't have to put that everywhere. The imports dot razor, it's going to have the shared using statements. Now, in my Blazor app, what I am going to have, it's basically this. And we are pretty much following the same pattern that the Blazor default templates use. Actually, let's create a shared folder. I didn't do it. I didn't do this in the test that I did before. I did everything in the root, but it's better to be a little bit organized, right? So we are going to create a main layout, and in our main layout, we are basically copying this. So we create a page, we create a sidebar, we create the menu that, right? We add the how you call it, the about, and we print the body. Okay. Now what else we need to do? Let's create the pages. So pages, index.razor, and this one is going to respond to this route. Now I forgot to do something. Well, we haven't yet created the www root, right? In here we are going to have CSS, and we are also going to have an index.html page. So let's go to look in here for HTML. HTML, let's name it index.html. And we are going to copy the default HTML template, which basically looks for a script name or a CSS style in app.css, right? So we are going to create an app.css style sheet in there. And we are going to paste our style. We are going to use only the default in there. And now there is something that we need to do. We need to go to the project definition again, and we need to make sure that our www root folder is actually being copied. So we create an item group. We specify that the www root and everything that it's on it, it's going to copy to the output directory. So let's see, we did everything okay. So we have here the form. The form is basically creating a new service collection. We initialize the Blazor web view. We set which is the file, which is going to be the index.html. That's going to be our the file that's going to be loaded. The index.html should have an element with an ID of app. So let's verify that. Sorry, this one. So here is the app. Perfect. That it's in there. Then we say which is the file or the component that's going to render this application. So we add the Blazor app, and this Blazor app that we have in here, it's basically this component, which is the router, right? And now we are trying to use the main layout, but one of the things that it it is not finding it, and it is because I haven't imported the shared um, folder. So type of main layout, and this should already be working. Then our main layout basically will have the navigation bar, which it's only going to have this title. We haven't styled anything, so it will look awful because we haven't had the styles. But here we are printing the body, and when the router receives the route for this, pretty much the empty route, it will load the index page. Now let's create another component. Once we are here, this is pure Blazor basically. List. Okay. And now we are going to say in the index, we are going to create just a button, right? We are going to inject navigation manager. Okay. Private void on list page list. Let's say that's a link. Click. We are basically going to do navigation manager dot navigate to list. Okay. We are going to set it to list. And we are going to add the event to the button. On click, it's going to be equals to onList link click. And once we do that, if we did it okay, we are going to navigate to this page once we click. So let's reveal everything. Let's see that everything is working. Let's run the application. And okay, this is a test code that I had added. We'll see why in a second. Now it says an unhandled error has occurred. So let's press F12 and let's see what's happening in here. It says the app.css was not found. And that's because I placed the CSS file in the wrong directory. Okay, so I'll remove the script that I had in there, which is this one. So you saw that it actually already executed a JavaScript function and it actually already rendered the Blazor view. So of course the menu will be there, the about, right, the index, the list, and if I click the list button, it will take me to the list page. So in here we know that that's navigating to the list page. Now the rest that you will do in here is start like adding the correct style so your application actually looks really good. Now I haven't done this, but one of the things that I will do soon and that I will recommend you to try is dividing your Blazor application in more projects. And for example, even create your main pages as a separate project. If you design that correctly, chances are that you will be able to totally reuse your Blazor pages in all of the other applications or in all of the other frameworks or platforms, right? In Windows Forms, in MAUI Blazor, for Android, for iOS, for WinUI, and even on Windows Forms, and of course in web. So if that actually works, you will be able to have this same application or a lot of applications with the exactly same layout with only one code base and without having to do a lot of additional effort to make them compatible to the other platforms, right? And without having to do like a lot of initial startup configuration and all that. There are some tricks to improve that boilerplate or initial configuration that you will need to do for each platform. But yeah, if you separate everything in projects, in components, even move your pages to a separate project, chances are that you will be able to reuse that with really small modifications or no modifications at all for the other frameworks or platforms where you need or where you want to have your applications. So as you saw, this is one way to have your Blazor pages inside your Windows Forms applications. As I was saying, it is a really cool approach that will allow existing Windows Forms applications to be modernized, even bring more developers. For example, I have really good experience in Windows Forms. I have used it for years. I had long time not really using it um, every single day because the standard is pretty much web development and most of the um, work is in there, right? So Windows Forms it is mostly used for either really quick applications, right, or applications that already existed, right? and giving maintenance to that for your customers. It has become a little bit hard for customers to find persons that will be able to support their Windows Forms applications, but sometimes they are not, your customers cannot really um, create their applications from scratch because of these are different reasons, right? So you can create some hybrid applications and modernize it. And you do not even have to rewrite your application. Since it's a Windows Forms, you can just create a new form and start adding new stuff there in new forms, reutilizing most of the code that you already have in existence in your Windows Form application. So it's really, really cool approach. I hope this has been useful. Thank you very much. Please remember to subscribe to the channels. We have a channel in Twitch, in YouTube, and you can also follow on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Thank you very much and have a great day. Also, please remember to use the Buy Me a Coffee icon in the Fair Play Tube website.